Hey, welcome everybody to Thursday's training. It is the 24th of September, 1 minute after 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're going to go through today a little bit quicker format, kind of like last week for those of you who attended. Last week we were intending to go through a couple of chapters, and I really only went kind of through one. I mean, I dealt with the other one a little bit, but we're going to do that second chapter today, and for next week we'll do one chapter. We'll just do chapter 7, Leandro. I think that'll work better. It's about 20 pages, and I think that's perfect. So let's go ahead and, without further ado, we'll get started. Just to do a little bit of a review from last week. A lot of the stuff that we talked about last week was attraction factors, things that just innately people find as an attraction factor. Certainly, the initial attraction factors need, the novelty is going to wear off at some point. So it's really what you do with that relationship on how that builds into, hopefully a great connection and a great fruitful relationship with people. So I'm just going to kind of breeze through those again, Leandro, today. May not even touch them all, but, people that are passionate, energetic, they have a sense of humor about themselves, right? We talked a lot about confidence, about how, man, it doesn't even matter really what you got going on or don't got going on. If you carry yourself with a sense of confidence, it is attractive to people. Energetic, authentic. We talked a lot about being authentic last week, and talk a little bit more about it this week. It's really all of this intermingles, right? If you notice as we go through this, I keep tying it to other things we've talked about because it all becomes really one thing and kind of a way of life. We talked about being complimentary to other people in earnest, right? You don't want to tell somebody who's got some jacked up something that it's all awesome because he knows it ain't awesome. Be authentic and find ways to uplift people. Know that everybody that you come in contact with needs to be edified. If you want to know that someone needs to be encouraged, put a mirror under their nose. If it fogs up, they need to be encouraged. Hopefully we can be those people, not for the sake of getting anything out of anybody, just for being a blessing to people. And so I hope you're around people that compliment you a lot and tell you how awesome you are, because we got enough people in life ready and willing to tell us how we're not making it and how we're not awesome. So ability, people who get results, right? People who have insight, who have studied or spent time sacrificing, learning a craft, a trade, learning a skill set, learning a thought process. I mean, we talked about people that, will pay money to go listen to someone talk about something that they've invested a lot of their time into, and they're sharing that. So having insight is very attractive. And that's one of the many reasons why we continue to develop ourselves. My major reason, Leandro, for wanting to develop myself all the time is that law of the lid, right? I got kids, right? I've got staff. I got people that I've got to create headspace for them to grow, because if you don't create that for people and they want to grow, you know what happens? They move out over here and they find someone else that's got headroom. So that's my main reason for developing. But here's another very good one, and for sacrificing and bettering ourselves, because then that insight that we learn becomes attractive to people and they want to be around and they want to hear what you have to say. And the other is, getting results. It doesn't matter. I've met some people with some horrible leadership skills. It's almost as if they studied the leadership principles and they thought, you know what, if that's left, I'm just going to go right. I'm just going to do the opposite, yet still found some way to be effective because they were able to get results, right? I mean, you think about any profession, whether it be sports or arts or, entertainment, the people that are the best at what they do are the ones that are so attractive, and they're the ones that you want to be around. So just having an ability and being able to get results in your field, or being able to show people that you're winning, and it doesn't have to be something that's calculated, right, or quantifiable. I think I mentioned last week, getting our daughter to college. I mean, that's a win for us as a parent, right? And so having a 22-year wonderful marriage with an amazing lady is a win. We've learned how to find peace and coexist and build a great life together. And people, people ask us at times, how do you do it? How do you get to 22 years? I said, well, the first thing, you probably should have 2 bathrooms. That's going to make everything a lot easier. Be curious about people. You know, people want to talk about themselves. And we're going to go through some of this today. And again, Leandro, I'm 6 minutes in, man. I got to fly today, brother. I'm going to keep it. I'm trying to keep it at a half, right? I'm going to give myself a little bit of leeway, but I'm trying to keep it to 30 minutes. You got anything going on that I need to discuss yet?
Everyone is so thrilled to be joining, and I can see their smiles and their engagement and someone rooting.
Everybody ought to have Leandro with me, man. Talk about energy, man.
I know.
Good stuff, bro. You know, we're going to talk today about where it is we find connections, right? I mean, we're talking about attraction factor, and it's almost like when we first started, we're talking a lot about mindset in these trainings, and then how to really put that to action and what to do first, right? Eat that frog. I mean, so if you notice kind of how I like to get through information, it's almost like, let's start with A. And the start with A is we can only control ourselves, right? We have no ability to have an impact on anyone else other than to influence them. And to me, when you guys are reading through this book and you see John's a big leadership trainer, leadership boiled down to its finest essence, to me, is nothing more than influence. So you see, it all really ties together. And I said a couple of weeks ago, I can't control how someone acts, but I can control my proximity to them, right? So as last week we talked about attraction factor, it's really to bring people into our proximity. It's also to recognize what we find attractive so that we can place ourselves in the vicinity of those that we want to learn from or we want to grow from. So the whole, I think the entire chapter is called Connect on Common Ground. So here you go. Common ground has to be the place where we meet people. And common ground, when we think about that, I hope that everyone's thinking about, I had a pastor once, Hal, who said it best. He goes, we need to meet people where they're at. We need to meet people where they're at. And I know this is kind of off topic, but I mentioned last week that I saw a TED Talk on resilience and what features do really resilient people have in common. And one of them was that people that are resilient know that adversity is coming. There's never a surprise like, oh, why me? It's like I always say, I don't mind problems. I just want different ones, right? I don't like dealing with the same problems over and over, but I know they're coming. And I want to, maybe this is just a word I feel, Leandro, because it's not in my notes, but if, you know, as we're dealing with adversity, and I'm probably, for someone who's actually watching it now or will be watching it, I'm probably speaking directly to you, that the adversity that we face, the pain, the illnesses, the being broke, you know, not having money, just whatever those adversities are, our being there and being able to get through that adversity provides an experience and a sacrifice that we can then lend to others. I said last week that there's, you know, that I opened up a little bit and explained that I've been through some serious challenges about 20 years ago and turning my life around. And some of the worst places that I've ever been, and those experiences that I had gave me keys to doors that I would have never been able to open to go speak and pour into people and show them my hindsight and hopefully that's their foresight, right? And it's the desire to want to go in it. And so when you're dealing with pain and you're dealing with adversity and or if you reflect back on those times, even better, if you reflect back with regret, this is a way to turn that regret around. Because that pain, that illness, that brokenness, man, that's common ground for so many people. But we're going to get into the authentic nature of how we should express ourselves. And one of the things that I had the biggest challenge with, I'm going to tell you here in about 5 minutes, if I'm moving on time, Leandro, is being open and being vulnerable and willing to share those, being humble, right? That's another big thing that I had as an attraction factor we'll talk again about today. But Common ground is typically found in shared interests, experiences, and values. Interest, experience, and values. We have to, let me just kind of go through some things that have to happen in us before we can put ourselves in a position to really find that real common ground. The real common ground, you know, maybe in the beginning, Leandro, we're both Floridians. We're both Americans, right? We have a shared faith. So automatically there's some common ground there. But when you start getting these deeper things and really building rich, fruitful relationships, you find common ground that only can be exposed when we expose ourselves. And this is one of those things where, you know, we don't always teach the things that we know how to do the best. A lot of times I teach things that I'm actively working on. Not that I got it all figured out, but it's easy to disclose the information from one individual to another, at least for me. So we have to have a real interest in people. We have to really value people. And I know that it can be tough. The human condition is suspect to losing confidence or people losing confidence in it. I hope you're around people, and I am, thankfully, in my life, where I come in contact routinely with people that remind me of the beauty of the human condition. Because depending on what you expose yourself to, there's enough tapestry out there where if you're selective in any way, shape, or form, and you're not being intentional about making sure that some of the tapestry in your life is positive and light and has light, it can easily get dark around us. And that hardness that it creates in us causes us to not be able to connect with people because we stop intentionally placing value on people. Express gratitude, be a grateful person. As we've said, be yourself, for better, for worse. We were talking the other day, I compare people to toast, right? Everybody's toast, right? You got the crusty crap that falls in the bottom of the toaster. You've got the crust, which may or may not be good depending on your taste, right? But, you know, it's also got that buttery middle, right? So try to focus on the buttery middle in people and be grateful. Be yourself. Know that just not disclosing. So I remember, I'll make it real quick. The argument is, should a leader or a speaker of a group or a company or organization share his or her weaknesses? And the answer is yes, because when we share those weaknesses, we're not really disclosing them to people because people already know we have them. All we're really doing is letting people know that we know, right? So be yourself. Don't try to be Johnny rock star when you're not, right? Don't make assumptions. This is big in the book. There was a neat story about a traveler in the airport had a bag of cookies, heard it rustling, and sees this other traveler taking her cookie. And so she grabs one just to kind of make a point and hears it rustling again. And then so she looks and she grabs another one thinking, okay, surely this passenger, this other traveler is going to recognize that I know he's taking my cookie. And then she looked down and there was one left, and that dude cracked it in half, put half in his mouth and shoved the other half over. And she was furious until she went to get up to go to her plane, and she looked in her pocketbook and her cookies were there. Yep. So it's a cute little story, but man, how many times do we make assumptions with people? And listen, I wrote down a couple things, and one of the things that I thought of was in the restaurant business, especially back in the day, you guys, most of you are on here, remember that there was smoking sections in restaurants. You actually could smoke indoors. And we had an old saying at Texas Roadhouse, the saying that I came up with, which was, not all smokers are scumbags, but all scumbags are smokers. So, if anybody's a smoker out there, I was a smoker at the time. So don't, you know, but the point of it is you ran the risk, a higher risk of coming in contact with a table that wasn't that much fun to wait on. But then I thought, man, we learned fast that you don't pre-script, you don't assume, because some of the families that came in that looked like they had the least to give were the biggest tippers and had the most fun. But the thing that the analogy that I thought that was more relevant to our business is when I think of taking CBD and going into a salon, I think of skincare. I think of, you know, prebiotic spray because I use it in my hair as part of my daily beauty regimen. That's the truth. Learn something new. Fun fact. But really, honestly, it was, I think, Lori or somebody who told me it was like, you know, the pain that they feel from working all day in the back and neck. And, you know, Lori actually, I hope I'm not speaking out of school, is indicated that it is, you know, she does nails, and it's tough on your body. And it's like, if I would have not taken dominion of that thought, I would walk into a salon thinking it's just about skincare, but it's not, right? And so because I make that assumption, do you understand that I preclude myself from bringing value to somebody? I know that's a simple little example, but think about it in a, excuse me, with more depth and scope on how many times we preclude ourselves from offering value and pouring value into someone's life because we make some kind of assumption. And I know that's hard. And I think when we start, it's almost like when you buy a new car, Leandre, you notice all that, you know, the number of cars that are out there. If we really start analyzing all the assumptions we make every day in our life, certainly in business, making assumptions will kill you. You'd be shocked at how many times we make assumptions. So I don't think that we're ever going to stop that. But I think if we're intentional about making assumptions about people, whether it's the way they dress, how many things they have coming in and out of their body, I have a tattoo here. You know, I know that there are older people in the world. They're going to see that and they're going to make an assumption about me. And how wrong could they be? I mean, what are the chances that they identified my unique personality because of a tattoo they saw from afar? So I get passionate about that because I think that that's something that we do like innately if we don't actually govern it and monitor it. I do have a note here. I'm kind of going out of order on 124 to read this. If you can learn, so you know, in a 30-minute format, this is tough. I don't know if I can qualify, but I'm gonna read it anyway. If you can learn to pinpoint how those around you experience the world and really try to experience the same world they do, you'll be amazed at how effective your communication will be with them. Totally agree. So I think it's very natural for us as human beings in the society and the culture that we're in to automatically identify differences, right? What's difference in these two pictures, right? We've done it since we were little kids. But I would challenge us all to start recognizing the similarities in people. And we do that by beginning to change, probably for most of us, beginning to change how we identify ourselves. So if I were to look at your social media posts, your emails, your communications from any different walk of your life, would I know the things that you love in life and like in life, or would I be more well educated on those things that you disagree with or you don't like? I don't know. It's an open question, but it's one that we should ask ourselves every day so that we become people who identify ourselves by those things on the positive side of the line, right? I'm not saying don't indicate things you disagree with. I'm not saying that at all. But it's like anything, too much of one or the other is probably not good, except there are exceptions to every rule. And in this case, too much of identifying yourself about the things you love in this world and the things you like about your life and the things you love about people, too much of that is good. Agreeing with everything's not good, right? Not having an opinion's not good. I'm not saying that. But we got to find time and understand, is it really about, it's kind of like my speaking maturation, right? In the beginning it was about what I had to say and what I said, and it became less about what was heard and what was received. So when we begin to prioritize in our life, is it more valuable that someone hear me? And let me tell you this, we're learning now that you can't really influence people without a connection. You can't really have a connection with people without some real shared stuff going on. It doesn't have to be an intimate relationship for there to be a connection. So what are the odds that you're really influencing, or we're really influencing people just by casting stuff out that we don't care about? I mean, it's a question we need to ask ourselves, because the value of our lives is going to greatly depend on the amount of value we can bring into other people. Heck, that's the only job security in life, is how much value do you bring, right? I mean, it's not about personalities. It's hard for me, and I feel sad a little bit. And I don't mean this in a condescending way, for people that have been in corporate America for 25 years and they're just, hey, the year's up and I'm ready to get my inflation. I'm ready to get this, you know, incremental increase and this incremental increase. I don't like those environments. That's almost like getting a trophy for participating for me, right? I would rather pay someone their value, than I would just say, hey, you're coming in here and no matter what happens, you're 7% for the rest of your life. What is it? That doesn't value the person at all. It values the position or the monetary over the person. All right. So anyway, man, see my ADD. Any errors, omissions, cares, concerns right now?
As a matter of fact, they're also in tune with you that they want more. They're eating popcorn as they're watching you.
Nice.
Yes,
Oh, that is the ultimate compliment. Because only people that are entertained eat popcorn while they're watching something. Okay. So let's keep moving. I think I'm doing good here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Let's see here. Don't make assumptions where we. So, here's the next thing. It can't be about us, right? And I know that's hard. And I'm going to go through a kind of an example of what I mean here in a moment, but it's really has to be that the needs and cares and concerns of others really has to be first and forefront. And do not get me wrong. I do not wake up every day and then go to sleep every day with 100% thinking about the cares, concerns of others. But a lot of times I do. Certainly when I'm driving to go work out, I'm only thinking of me. I'm thinking, what's my approach? I mean, so I want to put this in proper context. But when I come to work, man, my goal is to put the cares and concerns of our staff and our customers before myself. And I'm not even kidding you. And you might say, oh, you're a really caring person. Maybe, or maybe I just know that that's the way I'm successful. I mean, whether I care, whether I don't, almost irrelevant. I just know for a fact that when I start focusing on me, whenever I have in the past, I have not gotten to where I've wanted to go. And there may be people out there who go, I focus on me all the time and I get where I need to go. Good for you. I've just never done that. It's never worked for me, right? So it is what it is. So it can't be about us. And we talked, I think on a Monday Live, we talked about doing, about back to me, right? And my dad used to do that because you'd be like, hey, I was doing this and I went to North Carolina and we did this. And the person can't wait to get done and say, you know what? I just went to Australia and I just did this. So it's like back to me. I want to talk about me. And then if you look and you give some consciousness to that in conversation, especially in a group of 3 or 4, you're going to see people that they're vying for time to talk about themselves. And that's okay. That's an advantage to us because we really, again, the proper metric is you should know more about a person than they know about you. Not because we're being secretive, not because, in fact, we're going to talk about right next is being available and open to people, right? I'm not talking about, in fact, I'm talking the opposite about being secretive. We're actually trying to expose more of ourselves so that we find more common ground, right? The more landscape we give of ourselves to people, and even more importantly, the more we learn about that, we can find these little pockets of landscape and go, hey, I can relate to that. Hey, I've got experience with that. Hey, you know what I mean? And so, again, when I say learn more about people than they know about you, I am not talking about guarding oneself and saying, oh, I just have to learn more. If they know more about you, they're intentional about it. Or they're just very gifted, kind of like Stacy or Catherine. They're just naturally inquisitive, naturally curious, naturally a good listener. You get around a person like that, you have to work pretty hard to learn more about them. Be available to people.
Patrice has a comment. I find transparency is the best key to connect.
Oh, totally. Totally. And he talks about speakers too, which I don't bring up the speaking stuff, but he talks about speakers who claim a uniqueness, claim an insider, track is, they put this wall up literally. And I have to think that they don't know, because if they knew, like if it was like, hey dude, every time you say you're exclusive to this, no one else can go with you. Right? Oh, well, I'm here and I know the reason I'm telling you is because none of y'all could ever get it. Like trying to build up stature, and in doing so, building up the wall as well. So I'm with you, Patrice. I got to be honest with you, it's pretty easy to see when somebody's BSing you, right? When they're not. So there's one thing about not saying something, and there's another thing to mask it. And listen, I'll give you guys a tip, and it's worked very well for me. If someone is over verbose about a certain skill set that they have, certainly if it's integrity, certainly if it's their faith, I'll give you it's a true example. Guy, I'll spare you all the details. Guy I'm talking with actually felt pretty good about it. And then near the end of the conversation, he said, Pitch, you're going to love me. I'm the most honest man you'll ever deal with. And I literally, his name was Robert. And I remember like it was yesterday. And I go, Robert, why would you say that? You know, why? If you're honest, you don't need to tell me you're honest. It's like who was Mother Teresa said, if you're a lady, you don't have to tell anybody you're a lady, right? So when I say that to say, that's a tip for me that usually when someone is trying to convince you of how they have a certain proclivity at something, a lot of times they're really trying to convince themselves. So when someone goes out of their way to tell me how Christian they are, I run. I'm not even kidding you. That's just I'm not saying do that. I'm just telling you that's me. No, shit. Oh man. Because you know, the closer you get to them, the more you know you need them, right? It would cause the opposite effect if it were true. All right. We're moving right along here. We do have time. You know, I said it all. I say it to my mom. I'm so sorry, Mom. I know you're not watching, but I'm sorry. You know, when she says, "Hey, how come you didn't call me?" I didn't have time. I had time. I allocated other things. Like that time was there. I had it. It's not true. Make time for people. I've mentioned I've been to some funerals of people that were very well respected and loved, and very well attended funerals, and where people got up and spoke. And the common thread that I see all the time in these people is time. It was about time. It was about staying in a hospital overnight. It was about showing up after the wreck. It was about spending time with people. They have that old saying, how do kids who, can't talk, spell love? Time. Right? That's the only way they know. So spend time with people, be available, be open. And I think this is where my wife told me not to wear my glasses. She said it's distracting. So I'm having to adapt and adjust and improvise and overcome. Okay, 136. Okay, this is a good quote. I just wanted to read it to you. Anytime so when I highlight it, sometimes it makes it into a bullet. Sometimes it makes it as a quote. This would be the latter of this times. All right, I will listen to others for hours, mainly because that is what people want more than anything, to be heard. However, due to a history of emotional abandonment, I shut down and do not share my heart with others. As one who writes and desires to communicate, this is my greatest wall to tear down. Connection always requires both parties to engage. The reason that struck me is because in this atmosphere, one of the things that I think how we can really differentiate ourselves is by understanding that everyone has a right to their own opinion, and everyone has their own socio-economical, geographical history, experiences that are all unique to the individual. And this is just me talking to you. I'm an individualist. I'm not a conformist. In fact, probably to a fault, honestly. I don't even like getting in turnstiles in Universal. I literally don't like being, it's like to a fault. So I think in this culture, in this environment that we're in, certainly, with the political environment that we're in, I think it's really important from a connection standpoint, certainly from a relationship standpoint, and from just a quality human being standpoint, to try to understand where the other person is coming from, to try to get a sense of who they are, which is why being a great listener and asking great questions and being curious and, letting it be about them and not us is so powerful, because what that does is it softens us. It allows us to start seeing that person as a person. It allows us to start assigning value to that life. And I know to some people that might sound corny, but it's not. It's totally how we can individually make a difference in what I would consider a pretty dark world right now. How do we do that? By valuing people, by listening to people, by understanding that they have the rights and the reason for their own opinions and their own perspectives, right? And not expect people to think what we think or believe what we believe, but expect to find connectedness and stop seeing differences and start seeing the similarities and the things that connect us and bind us. as human beings. And I think, if you really want to, I really feel like we have the ability to really make a difference. And I think that what we're talking about now, and just in our own sphere of influence, seeking to understand a person better for the sake of building a fruitful relationship, for the sake of being of value in their life and giving value in their life, what little difference does that make? It's like, to me, and again, we're in the nest, right? This is the trust tree. To me, that's going to make more of an impact than putting out a tweet on something that we don't like. Like, I don't see that influencing people. I don't see that making a difference in our world. So I hope that this is more holistic and more causal to all of us making a difference in our own individual family, our neighborhood, our community, our workplace. I mean, that's what it's really about. Okay. Have a grateful spirit, like people. People like people who like people, right? And that's what I'm saying. You got to get to know people. I think if you just look at the tapestry of what's going on, it's a lot easier to see the darkness and the negativity and really the fear, right? Fear is a powerful emotion that's a leader emotion to something else. It's got to be like, marijuana is a gateway drug. It's like fear is a gateway emotion. It's going to lead you to sadness, to anger a lot of times, certainly for male types, or not male, A types. I know there can be female A types. I did not mean that. It was not a Freudian slip. Be humble. Be humble, honestly. And this is something I've struggled with in my life. And I told you it's because I came from a house that, sucked. And I had this low self-worth going through life, which caused me to put this kind of brash front up, to mask, to put a facade up to my low self-worth, which is a lot of time where people that are really arrogant or egotistical, it's typically because of that. It certainly was with me, but I love the two bullet points I got from the book is a capacity for self-criticism. I think that's extremely important. And with that criticism, have some humor about it. We're not supposed to be perfect. We're a bunch of dumb idiots. We're wandering around trying to do the right thing. And that's all it is. Second, allowing for others to shine, affirming others and enabling others. And guys, I want to talk. Leandro, I'm late. Damn it, I'm late.
What are you talking about?
I am running behind, man. My mind's working on a schedule all the time, baby. But we have to be malleable, right? We can't be static. Life is malleable. All right, I have a quote on 138. Humility raises up others so that they can be praised. That truly is it. And I think I'm going to close. I am. Look, I'm right here. I'm not late at all. What am I doing? I'm going to talk just real quick. I'm going to tell a quick story about some men in my life. When I was in the financial service business, and we used to put together these business teams, and I would have, and I would go do this for other people, but I would have leaders in our organization, way bigger leaders than me, come and do trainings for me, travel from out of town. Either one guy was in Jacksonville, one guy was in North Carolina. John was in North Carolina. John always traveled, flew. Mark always drove. Andy always drove. But we would have, and then we would have the CEO and the COO would fly in and do training for my business. And it was the coolest thing, right? You get these bigger than life characters who, again, they're attractive because they're winners, right? They've produced, they put themselves in this position. And when they would come, I didn't pay for the flight. I didn't pay for hotels. They would actually take me out to lunch, and sometimes superstars in my business team would earn, we'd all go out and associate together. And I learned each one of them little things by being just intentional about paying attention to them and what their kind of quirks were. And I learned what their favorite beverages were. Like Mark was a Diet Coke. If you could do it with a lemon. So then I ended up getting lemons and ice when he came, and I'd have him in my office so I can make him a Diet Coke on ice with a squeeze of lemon. John was always about good coffee, black, but it had to be good, had to be really strong, and he liked big cups. I mean, I learned where John liked to stay. I learned what their favorite foods were when we went to the restaurant. All I did was pay attention to what they ordered, right? And you start seeing. And I would serve them. I would always pick them up at the airport. They'd say, no, let me come get you. Let me serve you. Here's why. It's like, it's the natural order of things, right? Why was it Matthew? Why did they choose me out of a small group of people that they would, travel to and really pour into and invest in? It's because I got results. I had to identify myself first, right? And so in a sales environment, people identify themselves by seeking interest in what you have, right? And I think people miss that. Like, now we have samples. Listen, it's not easy to find somebody who wants something for free. It's not that easy to find somebody who's actually interested in what you have. So I'm always looking for people to represent themselves, identify themselves. And that's what happens first. There has to be a work that's put in first so that you can create an environment where people can identify themselves. And then when they do, you don't look at them as a way to get a free flight and a free vacation and a free trip. And you look at it like, how can I bring value to that person? And do you know when those guys came in and trained, our sales always went up. It always had an impact. And listen, it actually didn't always. There were certain business teams where it didn't seem to make a difference, like the personnel wasn't right or whatever. We'd make tweaks based on it. So it still had huge value. But listen, those guys made money every time a policy was sold, every time an annuity was done, every time a retirement plan was done. They didn't make a ton, but they made little pennies on dollars that we would make, right? So they flipped the script, which is what I'm asking all of us to do. Don't see people for what we can get out of it. See people, identify people in your lives where you're like, man, I want to pour into that person. I want to bring value to that person. And here's the thing. As you intentionally search for those people, those people are searching for you. There's people out there looking to pour into your life and into my life. How do we do that if we're not willing to connect? How do we find those people that want to pour into us? How do we find those people that we want to pour into? There's no way to do it if we leave our house every day thinking about us. It's hard. It's counterintuitive to the human condition. I get it. But it's the flow of success. It's the flow of peace. It's the flow of having love in your life. It's about focusing on others and trusting that plan is going to work out for you. And I'm not saying go feed homeless people till you're homeless. I don't mean that. I just mean get up every day and do whatever you have to do. If I don't get do the things that I need to do, Leandro, course of a couple of days comes on and man, I'm single Matthew focused. It happens to me. If I'm not thinking about it, if I'm not intentional, if I'm not engaging in reading, if I'm not associating with you guys and training, if I'm not, I get away from it and I go back to selfish Matthew, which is the way I came out of the womb. We all are. We have vanity. I mean, do you think, golly, my 14-year-old, 13-year-old boy still thinks the world revolves around him. So all that to say, leave the house every day, wake up every day with an intention of bringing value to people, wake up every day with the intention of learning about people and understanding people and knowing that you're going to face adversity and knowing that adversity may be people and seeing past that and trying to find the things that bind us and the things that connect us. And again, if we don't govern it, we will see life through the prism of differences. It's just how we're wired or how we're taught. I don't know if it's nature, nurture. I don't think it matters. Unless you're one of those sweet people like Stacy. I mean, I don't know that she sees her differences. I mean, what you guys see is literally her. Leandro's like, yeah, I mean, that is Stacy. She definitely has no representative, right? Like she's here, she's here. So, but that's not me. I have to engage in this stuff. I have to remind myself every day that the way that I get things in my life that I want is through helping others get what they want, right? I mean, we just re-interviewed our entire staff to make sure that we are still in line with what their dreams are, what their goals are, and that we're helping them get there. Why? Because is it because, that's a manipulative thing to get? No, we love our staff. I love seeing people grow and develop. And by the way, kind of like John, Mark, and Andy, at the end of the day, I'll probably increase a little bit from that, right? But I don't do it for the increase in self. I literally, after doing this for long enough, you begin to really see the results of it and you see evidence of it and you stop questioning it, right? I'll give you one analogy. And I've done this before. My son loves it when I do this. In here is ice water, and we know it's cold because this thing will keep it cold for like 82 days, right? Great. Buy the tumbler. It's my pitch. if you tell me that this water, and I'm telling parts right now because I've been talking a lot, if this water is cold and wet and refreshing, I might choose to believe you. But once I taste it, and I'm satiated by it, I'm refreshed by it, it is cold and it is wet, all of a sudden, someone else's theology or opinion about the condition of this water begins to matter a lot less to me because I've had my own experience. I don't need you to tell me what it tastes like. I've had it. So go out and experience this so that if you are right now, which is okay, it's where it all starts. If you're just taking my word for some of these principles, that's great. But man, take a sip of the water. See how cool it is. Once you see that, hey, every time I'm thirsty, I can drink water and it tastes good. Every time I want to grow, every time I want to develop, all I have to do is focus on the things that I know that work for me. And that is focusing on others and understanding that there's differences and uniqueness about people, finding ways to connect. Yes, are we talking, I guess at the end of the day, we are talking about selling CBD, Leandro, but it all starts with this stuff. It doesn't start the other way around. And I would say this, sometimes we get lucky. We've definitely had more than our handful of experiences of reps coming in and just, there's this old saying that you're one relationship away from changing your business. And that is absolutely true in this business. And so to those of you who have gotten like, man, I haven't had to do all this and I am finding success, way to go, but it will only last as much as you are developed. So even if you have that one relationship that turn your business around and you're doing well, find another one before you lose that one, right? I mean, always keep to develop and grow, because no matter, and every time we pour out of ourselves, every time we go out and we do this and try to connect, we're pouring out of ourselves. So it's even more incumbent that you're taking part in this stuff and you're engaging in quadrant 2 activities. I never let a training go by without, I sound like, I sound like, don't you? We never let one of these go by without offering you the opportunity. Without mentioning quadrant 2, please spend time, not too much time, but spend the appropriate amount of time in quadrant 2, developing yourself, refreshing yourself, planning, meditating, getting into those relationships, man. I'm telling you, that's where the fruit is. Don't be too busy to be productive. All right. Thank you, guys. Hey, man, awesome stuff. But hey, before I go, I want to make sure there's no comments, errors, omissions, additions, cares, concerns. Two. Shoot them.
First one. Ellie, she shared with us the fact that most people like to be heard, hear them out. Consciousness awareness with others means listening, pausing, reflecting, and reply.
Listen, pause, reflect, reply. As opposed to, I can't wait till you're done. Tell you my story. Back to me. It's almost back to me, man.
And Val, she's sharing, our world will be so much better if we could all look to understand where the other person is coming from. Being willing to listen to differentiate each other's opinions helps to bridge the gap.
Amen. Yes. Amen. So all starts with communication. Oh man, I just had something I was going to say, man. Somebody, I thought I saw a shiny object and I got totally taken away from it. Oh my gosh. What were you, just say what you just said again.
She's saying being willing to listen to differing opinions helps to bridge the gap.
Amen. And here's a good saying that I would give you that I use all the time. And verbal communication's a skill set for me. Like we have strengths and weaknesses. It would definitely be a strength. And one of the things, I don't use that strength to bully people. In fact, a friend of mine told me, he said the way you debate people is almost like if you're in a fight, somebody's running at you and you turn aside and kind of let their own energy carry them. That's kind of what I do. And I don't do it like, it's probably wrong to equate it to a fight. But let's agree to disagree. But we can agree to disagree and we can still be friends, right? It's like, it's a hard concept in the world we live in today. So thank you for that. I know I sound kind of like a dreamer when I talk about us really making an impact in the world, but I think a lot of people actually talk about making an impact in the world, but then when you watch the activities that they engage in, it leaves one wondering how they're impacting the world. So I know that the only way that I can do it is through a person, not even people, through a person and another person and another person. And it's one of the reasons why I love CBD BioCare so much, because we do draw a lot of numbers in, and we are able to, I always talk about multiplying my influence. I don't mind addition, but I like multiplication a lot better. So I hope you guys are multiplying your influence. Thank you for those of you who are sharing with me some of the things that, you're doing because of this, that it's actually causal and you taking action in your life. I can't tell you how uplifting and affirming and rewarding that is. So I'm not begging for more, don't get me wrong, but a strong, heartfelt appreciation for those who have shared some of the things and your goals and some of the things you're doing. Really, really gives me the energy. It's part of the pouring back into my cup, if you will. So with that, and without further ado, if I can figure it out, we'll get out of here. Thank you so much for joining, you guys. Have a great day.